Um,
Right, sharp on the hour, so a few more seconds.
all right, everybody, we'll be starting here in about 30 seconds.
All right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, from wherever you're joining us today. On behalf of the chairman of the International Data Center Authority and of the executive management team at the IDCA, as well as on behalf of the International Data Center Authority Global Foundation, a warm welcome to you. We have multiple objectives today in our webinar. First of all, to introduce the Global Digital Economy Report for 2026 that the chairman launched today on CNN and will be aired in the coming days on various programs. We have with us our Chief Research Officer, Mr. Roger Strakoff, who will introduce briefly the findings of the report. And then, as promised, I will speak a little bit about the IDCA Global Foundation that was just established. And to make it more interactive, we will run a poll with some questions for you. Obviously, we continue to grow both on the IDCA side and on the Global Foundation. We would like to hear from you and then possibly derive from this conversation some partnerships moving forward. I also wish to announce that we are assisted by two colleagues, Ali Pariavi and Amir Tamadoni, who will share with you the slides as well as the poll for your inputs. So with that, I'm just very pleased to give the floor to my colleague, Mr. Roger Strakoff, Chief Research Officer at IDCA, to present the findings of the Global Digital Economy Report 2026. I hope the slides are on the screen and everybody could see. Roger.
Okay. Hello, Simona. Thank you. She's reporting in from Bucharest this morning. I'm in the Chicago area, where ironically the weather is great, very sunny and warm. And it's an interesting day. Today, there's multiple global holidays going on, and I think they're all in observance of the release of the Digital Economy Report. I hope that's not sacrilegious to say that. But let's see the first slide. I think we have just 2 or 3 slides from the report. Okay, there's our title. You're going to want to look for that. We will send this out to anyone who attends this webinar. This is free to really qualified people, anyone in our audience who wants to see it. The report itself, I think, runs 50 to 60 pages with lots of tables and lots of insights, we believe. What's the next slide? This is a look at the world. And it's just interesting, what we've done is taken our results and organized the nations of the world into phases of digital economic growth. And there's just a very small number that we call advanced. They're mostly in Scandinavia. There's a larger number of nations who are in a second phase of substantial development of their digital economy. There are a larger number of nations than that are in the first phase of developing a digital economy. And to be honest, there are dozens of countries that we still see in a pre-phase. The key thing that we want to stress is that you do not have to reach a certain level to have a digital economy. The process that we use to integrate 150 different factors across different categories to determine the relative digital and socioeconomic development of nations means that every nation of the world, in fact, today already has some portion of its economy you could fairly call a digital economy. Even in the least developed of the least developed nations, people are using phones for apps and services. There is connectivity. The connectivity may not be good, but it exists. So when you're looking at the growth of the world digital economy, it's a continuum. It's not something that you have to aspire to. And one more slide, I think, from the report, which I think has lots of fun facts on it. This is one you can screenshot it. We'd be glad to send it to you. But bottom line, this is the critical nature, the guts of the report, and then Simona can talk about how our global foundation is going to address all of this. Right now, based on our own digital readiness calculations, the world sits at 17.3% of the world we consider to be digital economy. This is in line with the 15 to 8%, 18% figures you see from the World Bank and other large organizations. We see the United States slightly ahead of that at 18.1%. The United States, of course, is the world's largest economy, so that represents more than $5 trillion. We see China's digital economy at 15.2%, which represents, I think, almost 3 trillion. And the other data on this slide will tell you a little bit about the world global data center footprint. Right now, data centers worldwide consume about 2%, 1.9% of all electricity, but that's wildly imbalanced. That ranges from 0.01% to 10% across the nations of the world. And I think to address these incredible disparities and imbalances is one of the functions of the Global Foundation. And with that, we're going to let Simona explain it because she's CEO of the foundation, knows a lot more about it than I do. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Roger. Maybe for everybody listening to us, this is a report, the Global Digital Economy report that IDCA is producing every year. Last year, when the report was out, it provided inputs, some clarifications into the World Investment Report of the United Nations that is also an annual publication. So we had to coordinate our reports presented to you, presented to the world so that they make sense, they are coherent, and they provide a clear picture of where the global economy is. When we speak about the global digital economy, we have various understandings. As you know, there is no particular definition, standard definition of that. Digital economy has a core component that looks into all the physical infrastructure, all the foundational technologies. Then with those digital inputs, we have platform economy, shared economy, e-commerce, and then, of course, the entire global economy that has, to some extent, digital inputs. So very soon, digital economy will be the economy of the world. Unfortunately, countries are navigating this amazing technological progress at different speeds. We would like to make sure that all humans benefit, and that's practically the purpose for which IDCA decided to create a nonprofit, a foundation to complement its business and think tank part. The foundation came into being at the beginning of the year. It is meant to play a role into development cooperation. As you know, apart from governments, apart from multilateral organization, we have lots of non-profit, non-governmental organizations that play a role in ensuring that human betterment and living standards are improving. Our foundation is meant to promote digital equity, to ensure that digital access to digital infrastructure, access to digital assets creates a good foundation for development. We do have, as humans, a right to development. This is stipulated into a United Nations resolution. Right. And moving forward, the right to development would mean to have access to digital assets, without which is very difficult to project a future for all. So what we want to do is to ensure that digital transformation is a public good, which means we can have access to these benefits everywhere, wherever we are born, wherever we make a living. And then digital equity to be the foundation of development, as I mentioned. And then, very importantly, align technology, governance, and finance for impact. Digital economy should not be an add-on to the economy of a country. And what we are talking about at IDCA is to have digital assets, physical assets, as well as digital assets deriving from physical infrastructures, contribute to higher productivity, contribute to better living standards across sectors of the economy. So that's the concept of progressive development moving forward. Next slide, please. We would like to play a role with the foundation into the global conversations. As you may know, the world has adopted a Pact for the Future. Within the Pact for the Future, At the United Nations, within the Pact for the Future, there is a digital compact, which aims to precisely ensure that advanced technology benefits everyone. So what we want to do, as mentioned, digital assets and economic value generated by digital assets should translate into human development. We want to see humans happier, healthier, brighter, more prosperous. And definitely that cannot happen without ensuring countries are better equipped for that particular goal. And we work with governments, we work with the investor community, we connect the dots to ensure that in every country there is an optimal digital infrastructure, that there is optimally trained, equipped labor force, that there is sustainable financing to take development forward. And then, of course, as mentioned, we would like, wherever we talk about policies, about technology as a global public good, to play a role. So the foundation would like to acquire a status, a specific consultative status at the United Nations, and to play a role into the transforming education agenda of the world, and partner with various relevant organizations, UNESCO, the Education, Science, and Culture Organization of the United Nations, International Labour Organization, the Sustainable Development Solutions Network, all those organizations that are deeply involved into ensuring that life looks better on planet Earth, to join efforts and advance digital progress. Next slide, please, and I'll make a break with that so that we can go through the poll with the support of our colleagues. The report that Roger spoke about also obviously looks into the workforce gap. As mentioned, a digital ecosystem requires obviously physical assets, starting with land, with energy, with water, with then digital infrastructure, data centers, and all the other assets deriving from physical infrastructure. But they cannot exist without human input. So the workforce needs to be equipped for the future. And we are not talking here only about academic education. We are talking about all levels of skills that would allow people to work in data centers, that would allow people to make an income using technology or making technology available to sectors in the economy. So there is a structural deficit in availability of such skills, of such technical skills. And the model that Roger is using into the development of the report came up with over 100 million technology-related roles that form this global gap that we would need to address together. When we talk about the gap is across sectors. So we talk about digital infrastructure, all the operations, skills are missing. Technology companies come to IDCA, knock on the door and request IDCA to train more people because there is a need for more people to operate such digital infrastructure. But we also have gaps in software development, in technical management, and in also leading positions in the sector. And the comparison that is being made is between, obviously, the expected tech jobs that are contextual and the benchmark levels to allow that are set by highly developed digital economies. So that's the model that is being used to assess the gap. So it's, again, we do not talk about a skills mismatch. We talk about absence of such skills. IDCA and the foundation had an opportunity to meet with various governments. There are countries in which some of those jobs are not even classified. So if such jobs are not classified in national classification, that means that they practically do not exist. They are not recognized. There are no dedicated education programs to create such skills. And with that, obviously, no investment is going to come. There is very little positive prospect for a digital economy to thrive. So investing in people is critical. Humans developed the artificial intelligence. The artificial intelligence is a product of human intelligence. To master artificial intelligence for social and public good, we need humans to continue to grow in terms of knowledge, in terms of capability. So that's where the education component comes in. The foundation wants to, working with you, working with your governments, working with organizations in your country, with the private sector to identify such gaps, to look into policy, regulations, law, and create such training programs that issue certificates that would be recognized by the entire tech community so that people can have jobs in their country, ideally, in their digital sovereign systems, as well as wherever else people choose to make to live. With that, I'll stop here. There's a little more that I wanted to talk to
Yeah.
you about how we work, but I think this is the right time for Paul.
It is. And let me ask you a question though, before we go. I'm reading, you've already written quite a bit about the foundation, so you're able to convince, all the management and all of our boards that this is a very valid thing to do. You have extensive experience working with the United Nations and all these very top level organizations. I think it's time maybe for trifocals or quadfocals or something for me. So I have to do this, but let me read this. The IDCA Global Foundation is actively engaged in policy dialogue and advocacy within the United Nations system, including relation to the Global Digital Compact, which you mentioned. At the same time, you say it is highly operational. So we're not here just to talk about the problems. Is that my understanding? Is that correct?
Yes. So, as mentioned, as a nonprofit, a non-governmental organization, we have a seat at the table to take the Pact for the Future of the United Nations into implementation, along with obviously other operators, other non-governmental organizations, foundations around the world, and we
Hmm.
have, and with that, we engage into a dialogue with governments that are willing to work with us. And let me
Yeah.
just make reference to the most recent dialogue that we had with the small island developing states.
Okay.
Small island developing states are 57, out of which 39 are independent countries, 37 of which are members of the United Nations, so 20% of the membership of the United
UN.
Nations.
Hmm.
They established they established a center of excellence that is meant to capacitate people with various skills and enhancements that are necessary, and one of which being access to technology, adoption of technology, understanding and skills, relevant skills for uh, the digital systems, which are going to be governance systems everywhere. So the Global Foundation will engage with the Center of Excellence and use this platform to provide training and certificates to people across small island developing states as needed. We also received a request, actually in more than one place, to establish an academy that would allow a 2-year technical education program. The 2-year would be the maximum, so there are modules of 6 months, maybe less than that, but technical education to equip people with the skills that are necessary in data centers. This needs to start in parallel with the development of the digital infrastructure. So all those tracks would need to see motion at the same time.
Okay.
We can't wait to have the digital infrastructure, to have digital hubs, to have
Right.
data centers, and then scale the people, because obviously investment will not come. Very importantly, in the slides down the road, maybe we don't get that far into this presentation, we also talk about helping government to understand how investors in digital sectors make their decisions. Because many governments would think that, policy and regulation would be enough. It's not true. So our analyses show that labor force is extremely important. The banking system is important. Of course, the level of trust in institutions. So there is a multitude of parameters that investors consider that states are not necessarily everywhere aware of. So based on
Okay.
the research that you're doing, Roger.
Well, I think we're losing. I think we may have lost her signal.
Can you still hear me?
And now we do. It seems like you went away for a few
No,
seconds.
no, apologies. I was just saying that based on the research that you're conducting, the
Yeah.
foundation comes in to fill the gaps.
Yeah.
And the aim is to have resources channeled. Maybe let's also add to that we have brought together some important philanthropies,
Right.
education funds that would help us to achieve those goals. So,
So I think yeah, you mentioned the survey questions, so I'll let you do that here. One thing is like we have a lot of economics and mathematics and stuff going on and deriving a lot of the data that we have, working with the data that we have. But the feedback from people is the essence. So we have a global team of people every corner of the world, and we get feedback from them, and we reality check things. So, for example, the country of Zambia, I'll just pick an example, one of 150. Uh, we'll go to people in Zambia that we know and say, look, these are the numbers we have for your country. Let's reality check that. Let's see if we're in the same ballpark. Let's see if and as you said, a lot of times these countries may not even have the data and may not even have the job classification skills that we're talking about. And that's part of the purpose is I like to say it's hard to tell someone that their dog is not intelligent. And we would never try to tell someone their dogs are not intelligent, but maybe we can help them improve their diet a little bit. And maybe they can help us as well. That's the thing. We don't presume to be, or certainly I don't presume to be the expert on what it's like to live in 183 different countries of the world. With that, go ahead and let's
I
do the
just,
survey.
before the poll,
Yeah,
if I can ask Ali, please, to put the next slide up. Can everybody can see
there we go.
the
Yeah.
map? I just wanted to show the map. We spoke a little bit about that. So this is how big the gap is in terms of
And And
global.
that's a derived number, everybody. We didn't just say 100 million and then work backwards toward it. We did this long process over a long period of time, and that's what it came to. And those are IT related jobs, as Simona.
Yeah. And for everybody to understand what you're looking into is the gap, considering the trajectory of technology, the adoption of technology, and the baseline, which is the existing level of skills.
Right,
Um, Obviously, wherever technology moves faster, the gap is bigger. But importantly, I think to share here, very important to share is that developed economies as well are facing a gap.
correct. I
And,
agree.
they are
Yeah,
very concerned. Competition
yeah.
intensifies on that ground. So countries that can secure the labor input obviously do better. And please go with the poll. I think that that's the right moment for
Let's
us
see
to
what
take
we
a
have.
break.
So there's our audience. Here's your chance. How would you rate your country's current readiness for the digital economy? And usually responses come up pretty quickly. Yes. Yes. Sometimes we sit. The response is coming. Usually this works in real time pretty well. Oops. And there we go. Okay. Don't get
Okay.
impatient.
Okay, so what is interesting is that there is no uncertainty. So everybody had a quite firm answer. And I think it also aligns with your findings, Roger. How do you read this?
Yeah, well, based on all the meetings you're having, that seems to align pretty well. Yeah, it's progressing. People are aware. They know there's been some progress in their nation, or their company too. They may not be able to quantify it, which is part of the work that we do. Facing structural gaps, there's something you could probably talk about for many hours. So that's about I think it aligns with what we have found so far. What's the next question? I'll try to be more patient and waiting for the results this time. Primary growth driver. What will be the most, well, there's something wrong with my eyes today, I swear. Critical driver of national competitiveness.
over
That's an
the
interesting
5 years.
thing because
Maybe
again, go ahead.
we, we should help a little bit guide the answer, although obviously we want everybody's
Yeah.
genuine immediate response to that. But the reality is that countries are not necessarily very strategic in planning for the future. Many
Hmm.
of the countries that would actually have the resources to establish digital hubs, starting with land and starting with
Hmm.
power, renewable energy, as well as with cooling systems, basic
Hmm.
physical infrastructure, some human capital, do not necessarily have a strategy to
Right.
move forward. So that's the roadmap that IDCA speaks about constantly. And then you end up having your data stored and processed in digital assets that do not belong to you. So you're paying for data services, and your data sovereignty, your national security may be at risk. So we see a big gap in clear understanding as to what a powered, sustainable, sovereign digital future means for countries. So
Well,
look at the
you
results.
put your thumb on the scale very well. We influenced the answer to this one very well. I don't think so. I think this is an independent judgment that everyone has in which they agree with what you've been saying, that workforce and talent development is where it's at. When we're looking at the cusp of this sort of AI wave, and on the one hand, you have certain AI business leaders talking about trillions and trillions of dollars. Um, but the reality is that it's going to be moving fast in some fashion. And it looks like everyone's concerned about their societies and their companies having the skills to do it.
Yes, and maybe just to add here, in response to the answers we got, um, a recent report that was not ours, but we also released an artificial intelligence report,
Mhm.
showed that adoption of mainstreaming of artificial intelligence in business, for instance, remains limited. So only one third
Mhm.
of the small and medium enterprises actually make use of agentic artificial
Mhm.
intelligence tools. So I think human intelligence is still processing how artificial intelligence could support business growth benefits. And since we have that lag, if you wish, we
Yeah,
have an opportunity to ensure that artificial intelligence is put at good use, at positive use, at ethical use. And that's where the foundation also wants to place its advocacy moving forward.
absolutely. Absolutely.
We have more questions.
We do. Let's see here. What is the biggest constraint limiting digital economic growth in your region? This is like going to the not that I spent a lot of my time at the racetrack, but it's like going there. I feel like which horse am I going to bet on here? I'm betting on one of them, but I won't say which it is to
Okay,
the answers.
we won't
Um,
answer. That won't be part of the poll
oh, I
today.
was wrong. I lost again. I thought it'd be energy. But look at just exactly what you just said. Not only the skill shortages, but a lack of long-term national strategy. Exactly what you just said.
Indeed. I think part of the world is in some sort of a state of denial, thinking that the future without technology is possible. While, of
Mm,
course, I'm not fully embarked on a technology determinism to consider
right.
that without technology, we won't exist. The reality is that technology needs to make our life easier. And that's the trend. Humans will always look for solutions that make their lives easier. So there's no way out
You,
of this.
no matter what they say, life is probably better now than it was in medieval times, overall for the vast
Yes.
population. And the proper use of the technologies and fair-minded use, if humans can be fair-minded, that's exactly, I think, what you're talking about.
Yes, that the first layer of automation practically addressed some of those needs that humans had. I think
Right.
we have more questions. If we could move.
Yeah, I think we have seven, and I think this is number four. So let me read this. Let's see, what is this one? Yeah, I remember.
We were just talking about how significantly will
Yeah. This one,
AI increase national productivity by
yeah, this is an
2030.
interesting one. They're discussing that.
So we are using 2030 as a threshold. It's important to share that the need for data capacity by 2030 is quite high. We talk about
Yes.
some 300 gigawatt and compute capacity, and unfortunately, we are far behind. It's how significantly will AI increase national productivity with advance economic growth by 2030 is what we want to hear from you. Your answers are important, so please give us a feedback.
Okay. 47% strong impact across major sectors. There you go. Um, not transformational. We're not there yet, but a strong impact, I think, is exactly what everyone desires and what is also possible.
Yes, and that particular interdependence, human capacity, physical infrastructures, and ultimately AI to be put at work together would drive more growth. Other questions, please?
Number 5. I think we have 3 more. Workforce transformation.
This is particularly important for our foundation, so take a second to answer the question. There are still countries that do not even have digital literacy into the school curriculum yet. Obviously, moving from there to specific, very technical digital skills as IDCA provides through its large training program is a long way to go. Give us your answer here.
Yeah,
Um, so
that
we do
matches
have
up well.
countries, we we do have so it's interesting that we do have a good share. So 14% of the respondents
This is,
mentioned that their countries are investing, taking that very seriously. And some progress is dominating the answer.
yes.
So
It's
a
a
lot
very
of hope.
optimistic audience. We like we love we want all of you to work with us.
We need to remain on that happy note.
Yeah,
We have more questions
yeah, 2
and
more, I
a little
think.
bit on the foundation.
NGO.
This is kindly share your views on that. We would like to know, you mentioned that in your country you see serious investment in digital skills. In some countries there is some progress. Is that only government-led? Are you aware of any private sector-led training programs? As there are public-private partnerships in
Yeah.
vocational training, in technical education that need to be considered. How about NGOs? Are there non-profit organizations, organizations that are in the public good business, if you wish? Are they present and working in that space? One of the objectives of the Global Foundation of the IDCA is to ultimately grow that capacity in local NGOs as well. Obviously, one foundation cannot deliver such an important output to have everybody skilled. But if we create a network of local foundations, that would be great for us to consider
Sure.
as a success story. So
And the answer again, yeah.
there are some, and we obviously hope that they will grow. They will reach deeper in the community. That's what NGOs do. Governments have a hard time to actually knock on everybody's door, but NGOs can do that. So we look forward to actually going beyond this webinar to exchange some thoughts with you and see whether there is a way to start again nurturing and forming, capacitating those local NGOs in skills development. And I think we have one more or two more
One more?
questions. One
Is
more.
it? I think it's one. I may have lost count. Digital inclusion gap. That's the biggest there to digital inclusion in your country.
Yes. So are there physical infrastructure constraints? Are there policy gaps? when we talk about inclusion, we truly refer to everybody in the society. We talk about traditionally disadvantaged groups, people who are migrants, internally displaced. We have youth in some countries that are not necessarily able to access all those assets, women in many parts of the world. And we also know, for instance, that while the connectivity gap is only 5% around the world, so we practically talk about
Yeah.
400, 500 million people who do not have connectivity, primarily in countries in which electricity is not available to everyone.
Right.
But the usage gap is much bigger.
Yeah.
And
Much
the
less.
usage gap is bigger because of the cost of the accessing digital assets and tools, cost of connectivity, language issues. There are language barriers, and
And the training comes up again.
some security constraints.
Training comes up again. So you're hitting spot on here. Yeah,
Affordable connectivity is the first one. I'm looking into
yeah,
the order of questions. So we have 20% of the people attending who think that affordable connectivity is a problem. Access to devices, I kind of agree that, everybody has a smartphone. Mobile technology has advanced very, very fast. We wish other technologies could replicate that model. And the skills,
yeah,
accessibility, language. Language seems to be a problem in many parts of the world, and policy and funding gaps. I think if we were to add one more option here in the answer, that's the privacy and security concerns.
right.
We do know that those also hinder access to digital assets. And I'm not sure if there is any other
I
question.
think that's it.
Okay,
But
so I'm
we like to say that connectivity per se is not the problem, like you say, and there's enough fiber optic cable in the submarine cables to deliver massive amounts of data more than we are now. And mobility is ubiquitous. It's interesting in our research, we find a gap of about 2x and top to bottom in mobility. And unfortunately, what that means arithmetically or mathematically is that there's not a strong correlation between mobility and success. It's become table stakes. But there's 100,000x gap between the underlying digital infrastructure from top to bottom. And so that's the step that we have to take. And as you say, wouldn't it be great if the rest of the whole entire end-to-end situation were as well developed as mobility has been? It's been a great success. Don't want to downplay it, but it's in between the cables here and the devices here that the gaps exist, and that's exactly what our data is finding, and the report talks about a little bit. So please go on.
So when in some of the answers, we also had responses with respect to limited financing
Yeah.
capacity. Most of the countries today are deeply indebted, debt at unsustainable levels, debt servicing at levels above the growth rate of the country. So they
Mhm.
need to pay debt at interest rates that are higher than the GDP growth rates. So these countries would never
Right.
get out of that. So
Right.
how can we fit sustainable digital infrastructure development into such context? So obviously that's a component that we look into. The foundation also wants, when working in developing countries, those are our primary target, primary beneficiary, to look into financing strategy. The financing strategy, the ideal financing strategy, combines various assets. Domestic resources are important. Investors do not come unless they see a commitment by the government. And we look into very specific digital economy bonds that could be guaranteed in various formats of support by international financial organizations, by bilateral partners. It depends on the country, on the context. And also with that, showing that level of commitment, having foreign direct investment coming in, creating that ecosystem that would attract foreign direct investment. But why not venture capital, philanthropies? Philanthropies have become a very important player in development cooperation. Again, we have quite a few on the board of trustees of the foundation. So we think every country is a distinct case, and this is why the foundation has that flexibility to put the expertise, the knowledge, the commitment of IDCA at service to countries that otherwise would not have that kind of support. We talk about countries that are post-conflict, countries that are fragile, vulnerable to climate change. Those add additional needs when it comes to digital infrastructure, and the foundation would stand ready to adjust our offer to a specific context. I wanted, if possible, to have the slide on how we work, because I would like to share with you so that you see where the entry points are going. It's called How We Work, the slide. I'm just going to identify the number of the slide. This is slide number 10. Just for everybody's clarity, I mentioned at the very beginning that we engage with member states. We would like to see member states being committed to this particular agenda, but also private corporations. IDCA has in its technical standard committee almost all of the technology companies operational at this time. Those companies obviously are providing requests, their assessments and requests for skills, wherever they want to make an investment. Multilateral institutions, as mentioned, with the United Nations as well as with the World Bank, but most recently with the Digital Cooperation Organization, which is based in Saudi Arabia. The Middle East, as you know, is moving ahead at neck-breaking speed.
Yes, very
Other nonprofits, and we look forward to hearing from you which organizations you think would be best positioned in your country to partner with us, and academia, a very important partner, as they are knowledge producers. They also invest in skills, in academic skills at the country level. And we look into most transformational initiatives. Obviously, we aim for everything that is invested to create, to have a multiplier effect. We talk about transforming education systems right now. As mentioned, that's a big agenda at the United Nations. There will be a summit at the beginning of May, where exactly digital knowledge, digital skills would be placed into a newly designed education system globally and regionally and at country level. And mobilizing financing is important. Again, we build trust as a nonprofit, and also with the expertise that IDCA has that would de-risk certain environments. And we hope that we could create investment pathways for foreign direct investors, for, in general, private capital coming in. And through research and studies, as mentioned, IDCA is a big producer, but the Global Foundation will have its own skills development, policy advisory, and global advocacy. And this is a big mission. I'm fully aware of the responsibilities that we have on our shoulders, but we look forward to engaging with all of you to make that possible. And I think we have one last slide towards the end where I'm mentioning, I would like you to know how we translate, how we connect our global presence working with international organizations into a national impact. I mentioned at the very beginning that there is a big agenda that member states have adopted, which is a nice piece of paper that would need to be implemented. In that paper, though, countries agreed that one most transformational dimension of development is digital technology, and creating a digital compact to allow all countries to benefit is a prerequisite for a safe future for our humanity. And then Within that, of course, the Global Digital Compact talks about capacity, governance, capacity of governments themselves. Governments also reach the point in some countries to understand that they have gaps in their own knowledge as to what technology stands today and what the potential is for the future. And moving across the society to ensure the level of understanding of technology is optimal, is as necessary. Then we have heard, I'm sure you know, about the independent scientific panel on artificial intelligence that was recently created,
Yes.
United Nations. This is a group of a combination of experts and political figures. We offered our services to participate into their dialogues and provide technical inputs and contribute to their policy making, their decisions that would then affect all countries at the United Nations. And something that is very new, we are moving towards a new set of goals. Some of you are familiar with the Sustainable Development Goals. They're about to expire. While they are not looking very good, so only about 20% of the SDGs are on track. Obviously, progress is slowing. There is a lot of global distress at this point in time that would affect the SDGs, the implementation of the SDGs. But we also have some SDGs that have moved backwards. So progress is actually negative, and something needs to be done as soon as possible to put them on track. The agenda was developed to safeguard our future. It was research-based. It was built with governmental consensus. So while we are hoping that we could accelerate just the last mile, the SDGs to look better by 2030, we need to look into an agenda beyond 2030. Since progress requires, for sure, technology adoption everywhere, across economies, across societies, we are part of that conversation, working together with the Sustainable Development Solutions Network. I'm sure you're familiar with the network that was created for the SDGs. It's a research network that is extremely rich. And they reached out, they requested our support. This is the network that is presided by Professor Jeffrey Sachs, professor at Columbia University. And it includes, as mentioned, all the academic institutions, research think tanks, corporations in some cases, that want to play a role in development cooperation. So it's extremely rewarding for us to have received such a request to partner and work together on the new agenda.
Right.
And
I think,
hopefully the next reports on the global digital economy will look better. So over to you,
well,
Roger.
I was thinking it's nice to see the focus on 2030. We can look to 2035 as far as the continued AI build out. We don't like to look into the deep future too much as far as predictions. But I was thinking about the year 2100 a while ago, and originally the original discussions about climate change, global warming before that, were focusing on the year 2100, which is this incredibly abstract concept. So I tell everyone that I know that I have a granddaughter. She's 4 years old now. And the reality is there's already several hundred million people on the planet who are her age or younger. And on average, they will all be alive in the year 2100. There are hundreds of millions of people on the earth that will be alive in the year 2100. Right now, my granddaughter loves me and she thinks I'm pretty cool. And I would hate it if the year 2100 comes along and she has to change her mind because of what we didn't do. And I think, when you realize that these future goals are not just abstract concepts, they are real and not necessarily purely data driven, but we have a lot of data. And, if you can't measure it, it's very difficult to improve it. And so that's what I think the importance of what you're saying is that this is real. It can be measured, it can be improved, and there are ways to improve it. Is that is that a fair
Yeah.
way to look at it?
Yes, and let me just say that every sector of our economy, of our global economy, is knowledge intensive and is data intensive, and
Yeah,
quality of data matters to good policy decisions that are supposed to be made. We won't know how to address the global warming challenge that we have without high
data.
quality, timely collected data. We
Hmm.
also need desperately to have high quality data to analyze social behavior, to understand human response to what is happening, to be able to protect people with the right policy and governance decisions. So data is an asset class. We all treat it as an asset class, and we need to make sure that it's available everywhere, and governments could together make better decisions. It won't happen unless over the next 18 months, the next 22 years, countries will upgrade their digital infrastructure, their digital capabilities, and would have a strategy towards
Right.
digital equity, access for everyone. That's the aim that we have together with IDCA. And I'm hopeful that through such discussions and receiving your feedback, we can better respond to the needs that you, your countries, your organizations actually have.
Without dragging the issue out too much, we have had there's a very good question relating to education that's come in from one of our participants today. And I'll read it because it's very specific. So, why do you think there is such a large gap of ICT deficits, talents? Do universities not have enough capacity? Are students not sufficiently interested in ICT careers? Is there not enough funding by states? You've touched on all these topics, but this person has put together one question. Could you address that one more time because it seems to
Well,
be
yes.
critical?
Well, I don't think there is an easy answer to that. And I think, there is it may be, we may find a different answer for each
E-
country in
Each
which.
country, right? I
So
agree.
there are countries I mentioned in which digital literacy is not considered yet a necessity. There is a lot of push, including from UNESCO, to ensure that kids very early age acquire digital skills. Of course, they all have smartphones, they all have gadgets, but a structured education in digital
Right.
literacy is extremely important. Some basic prerequisites such as connectivity, as we discussed, and affordability of connectivity would be necessary. There is also an intergenerational issue that we would need to address. There were countries in which I also had the opportunity, the privilege to serve, where, for instance, teachers in school were turning off the internet because they were concerned that children may have questions and may use those assets, and they would not be able to respond because they themselves do not have enough digital literacy to be able to participate into a constructive conversation with their students. And while, that may not be the case everywhere, I'm quite sure that in each country, in some smaller communities, that may be the case. So that's why having education programs that are tailored to every age group, we would need to close the gap at some point. And it's insufficient investment. Countries do not have money. We talked about that, but it's also a strategic issue, if you wish. We started with that in our conversation today. We spoke about the non-strategic approach to adopting technology. So some countries do not see the value of technology and of the data that technology supports generating into increasing productivity in all sectors of the economy. So there are significant gaps that would need to be addressed, financial knowledge. So without that strategic commitment, that strategic approach that should not have any particular political color across political parties, that should be a common understanding of need. And without a strategic approach to that, without aligning financing, without making sure that at all ages people would have enough skills and understanding to be able to be an active player, positive player into digital development, is very difficult to close the gap. It's like every new age we are in comes with that challenge. Do we have the right skills to take this forward? So
Right.
it's not, it happened before the industrial age. The industrial age also faced a giant
Yeah.
skill gap, but it eventually came in. It's just that we cannot afford to take the same slow pace of advancement. Here is the time when we need to ensure that humans are stronger and capable of embracing progress, using progress for their benefit.
Just a few minutes left. I'd like to address what you mentioned about data as an asset class. So we can't reform all of generally accepted accounting principles probably in 5 minutes, but I think you're onto something there. The idea that data is not necessarily valued as a tangible asset. It's not considered as the asset class perhaps that should be. Could you talk a little bit about that? Because
Yes,
that's
we
really
also together, Roger, we had this conversation some time back. We were looking into how economists project the economic output, how much an economy can produce. And we consider that's economics 101, the inputs into the economic output being obviously land and capital and labor driving any form of economic output, whatever the economy produces. And
right.
we do have a multiplier, the total factor productivity, that makes a distinction between countries that would have the same inputs, but still have different outputs. So that's where you have more technology, more innovation. Well, we reached the point where actually data is a distinct input. Data that is
Hmm.
not necessarily human produced, but produced by digital systems is a distinct input into the economic output, into everything that
Measuring
an
economic
economy
output.
produces.
Okay.
So without having data sets that determine higher productivity, as you mentioned in the report,
Yeah.
higher production, better production, higher quality, then economies are not going to perform better. So we can no longer consider that data is a part of the human input, and it's already captured into the
Yeah.
labor input. Is not the total factor productivity. It is a distinct input. It is a distinct asset class that we would need to have it factored into the famous Cobb-Douglas function that determines how much an economy can produce. So we wrote a little bit about that. We will continue to write about that. So that's where economists need to go back to the drawing board and
Well,
reconsider how economies are going to perform. Technology and data to start with as an asset class would need to be factored in. It is in itself a driver of economic output.
there you go. So the IDCA Global Digital Economy Report is now available. The IDCA Global Foundation is up and running and very active. You can certainly contact Simona through LinkedIn, through IDCA. How else? Maybe you'll see her. I've traveled with her. Sometimes you just stand in the middle of a place and people come up and talk to you. I think you've met everyone in the world at one point in your career, or it seems like
Well,
it.
I still hope I will meet new people, including
But
those who are
but there,
listening.
in fact, there are some you haven't, and that's what we'd like. So thank you for having me here today. And Simona, the final word is yours.
Thank you so much. Obviously, the International Data Center Authority, with its global foundation, would like to be present everywhere. As mentioned, that if that is not possible, we would like to have extensions through local NGOs, through local partners, community organizations, governments. We are still defining our business model. We are very new, but again, we have significant power through all the experts around us and the philanthropic organizations, the education funds that joined us. We have inputs from experts in ethical digital progress, ethical AI, and we remain very active on all platforms. That's how we source our products, and hopefully we will be able to have some metrics to determine how much use we represent and we make to the world. Our ultimate goal is to see more people capable of securing jobs in technology sectors, in digital infrastructure, in data centers. As the chairman always says, software development will soon be taken over by AI. Jobs in the physical data, physical digital infrastructure, without which there is no digital progress, those jobs will not disappear. They will change in nature.
Yes, yeah.
Chips are changing, some foundational technologies changing, advancing, but those jobs will always exist. So if you're interested in that, obviously IDCA stands ready to provide that particular training. If we work in developing countries, we will find ways in which that training could be made available. And we thank everyone for this very, very interesting conversation and exchange. We'll take your responses forward to
Yes.
do better next time.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.